when the stress of my life was just bearing down on me. And that's when I turned to the harder drugs. Like at this point, it's an all-out shit show when I drink. Everything's going to fall from under me.
Here we go. What's up, everybody? Today's guest, Philip Cargill, is here to share his story of addiction and recovery. And if you don't know who I am, watch this.
I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work, and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knox Talks.
All right. Today's live production is brought to you in part by Prairie Sky Recovery Centre and Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Mom Stop the Harm. To learn more about our sponsors and see everything we have to offer, visit www.hardknockstalks. Now, let us bring in Philip. What's up, Phil?
Hey, Daniel. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. It's always a bit of a struggle with the tech issues. You know, every week I do this for the first time with someone, right? So it's always a new adventure for the person that I'm working with. So,
you see, I thought that I was being picked up by a limo and brought into your studio.
Well, it was about to come to that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if we couldn't get the sound figured out, I was about to send the limo. Yeah. So, is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started today?
No, I just hope, I think what really caught my eye about your show and yourself is, the gift of hope and kind of showing people being a compass for somebody who's trying to figure it out. And, that's what I try to base every day of my life on. And do I do a good job with it? Not always, but I try.
All right. Well, let's jump in. All right. Well, my friend, why don't we start from the beginning? Why don't you tell us what it was like growing up?
So I grew up in a suburb of Boston, about 4 miles as the crow flies, so to speak, from Boston. I grew up in a neighborhood where there were, between 6 or 10 or 12 of us, depending on what given time of the day it is. And we had a ball field behind us. So I really kind of grew up in that suburb life of neighborhoods, taking care of neighborhoods. And my parents still live there today at the same house. And I moved to New Hampshire about 8 years ago. So Daniel, can you kind of push me along here, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's
no.
right.
I was trying to decide if you were having a moment or if you'd forgotten what you were saying.
Both.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, you said that, you grew up in a neighborhood where everyone looked out for each other. Was there a lot of drinking in the neighborhood? Like, was substance use a common thing that you saw?
No, I mean, people would drink their beers, but I mean, I don't remember, I don't remember my father ever taking a shot or
Mm-hmm.
seeing him hold a shot glass,
Mm-hmm.
or even be drunk. But 4th of July, your typical big holidays, what happens behind closed doors is, as we know, a different thing.
Yeah.
But there were certainly drinkers around, but it was tight. We it was really tight, a tight
Mm-hmm.
community, and I don't think you can find something what I experienced ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably saved my life to a degree because it kept me from doing the dumb things that I was doing because I was growing up on those morals of the neighborhood and of
Mm-hmm.
friendship and family and respect for others. So
Mm-hmm. How old were you the first time you got loaded?
I don't know if I ever say if I ever got loaded. I think, but I had a friend, and anyone that knows me who will know who it is. Uh, Sometimes his father would leave out coolers after like a fishing trip for the weekend
Mm-hmm.
down the harbor, you know, fishing for stripers. So he would always leave his leftover, whatever was left in the cooler, outside for like a week or two or whenever he would go again. And there'd always be like 10 or 9 mil lights in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they were about at least a week old in the hot sun. It tasted terrible, but we drank them, and we did it. We would do it more often than not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we did it a few times a year. Uh, but I mean, the first time that I ever was really, really intoxicated was when I was about 14 years old. Uh, I tried to stay away from pretty much everything because my father's old school, and that stuff doesn't fly with him. So if I'm
Yeah.
out drinking, having a couple beers at 14, there's a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, with that, I didn't do much. I was petrified every time I drank those beers. But one day we all got caught in the fifth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and by one of the parents across the street, and they called the principal. And I wish I could say now it wasn't a school matter, but it was just behind the school. And um, yeah, we were smoking cigarettes and having
Yeah.
beers at fifth grade. It was
Fifth
sweet.
grade. So,
Yeah.
looking back now, like you said that, if your dad caught you, you were afraid of that, right? But you were doing it anyways. Was your intention to get drunk, or was your intention to do this because that's what adults did and you wanted to feel grown up?
I did it for my own curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
to see what it tastes like. I don't think I wanted to get drunk um, by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And before we go, I just want to take one quick step back. Is my childhood. When I speak about that neighborhood, I don't have from my younger days and preteen days. I had a
Oh, you,
sorry.
you're getting a phone call and it's vibrating back. Usually the guest cuts off when they get a phone call, so at least you're still here.
Yeah, that was my wife.
Oh, okay.
Another one of my fans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so no, I want to put it out there that my childhood was perfect. I mean, as far as I knew,
Mm-hmm.
um, there were meals on the table every single night at 5 o'clock. My clothes were always ironed, ready, put out for school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just even the social aspect, we spent a lot of time in the White Mountains, and riding bikes in downtown Boston for
Mm-hmm.
years. So it was really it was a great childhood.
So
I know that.
with all of having said all of that, when did things start to go sideways for you?
I think, my brother is 6 years older than me, and my sister is 4. So my brother and sister were both at college.
Mm-hmm.
So I was home alone because they're 2 years apart. Um, there was an issue around the household with some, you know, things going on within the addictive nature,
Mm-hmm.
um, and all the other scary and gory other details that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I would see somebody I love hurt themselves a lot, and it tore me up inside to see that. And I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. Um, and really, that's when I started going downhill because I felt like I always had to go on watch. I mean, as I went through senior year of high school, I drank more and more, but that was just with the time, and then you hit college, it's all over.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was dealing with the issue of never physically abused by any means or mentally abused
Mm-hmm.
by any means, this inadvertent, was inadverted damage control that was occurring that I don't think either one of us knew that was happening. So,
Mm-hmm.
things would happen where you would have to go to the hospital and to get help. So, I'm ready to talk about it at some point in time, but
Yeah.
I'd like to have a conversation with that person a little bit more
Of course.
about that.
So
But
when all this was happening, and we don't need to go into details. It's fine. Did it feel normal? Like, did you think that this is what's normal? Going to the hospital for whatever reason. This must be what other families do too, or did you know that something was out of place?
I caught on. I mean, if God gave me anything, it's being observational,
Mm,
and I can think back, and I can think back to the day actually, and see what I was wearing, and that's how good I can go back.
mm-hmm.
So it didn't take me too long because normally when you get you go in the store and you go to the counter, you use a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I was pretty young, but things were being paid for in cash, so it was, it clicked a little bit, but
Yeah.
I caught on to it, and then I was the only one actually like going pretty severe after the situation, and that consumed a lot of me. Um, and I'm very close to this person. I love them to death,
Yeah.
and there's nothing I wouldn't do in the world for them. But when I got sober, this person, you know, called me, and I was in the sober house, I remember, and apologized.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I, I forgave her before that, but I forever forgave her then.
Yeah. So
Uh,
tell us a little bit about your own, and just briefly tell us about your own journey, like when the substances became a problem for yourself. Tell us just a bit about that, and then what happened that brought you into recovery.
so these, when I believe it was, I always knew that I was an alcoholic. I mean, I fit that criteria that, if you've ever blacked out, if you've ever been in a fight, if you ever,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so, that little litmus test they have.
Yeah.
So I failed all those for years. So to give everyone kind of a timeline, I was 30. 35 when I got decided to get sober.
Mm-hmm.
So before all that, I was getting significantly drunk on the weekends and maybe Thursdays. All through my 20s. I mean, at college, I was kicked out because of my grades. And a lot of that had to do with me not going to class because I was hungover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened there was the fear that I had for my father, it turned around and kicked me in the ass because I wasn't exposed to, like, I was so afraid to drink that I wouldn't drink.
Mm-hmm.
It worked until I went to college when no one else was around.
And then dad wasn't around anymore.
Dad wasn't around anymore.
Yeah.
But even when I go home on school vacations, Dad was still around.
Mm-hmm.
So that I still have the same curfew. I'm like, oh my God. But
my dad was like that too. I had the earliest curfew at all my friends. I think I might still be a little resentful towards that.
yeah, and now I can't wait to go to bed.
I know. Yeah.
Another gift of recovery.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's when things, because of it being a senior year and celebratory, that became more normal.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to college, I was normally drinking, but on a lot more occasions. I wasn't drinking hard alcohol at the time. I think I may or may not have tried it before that. I can't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But I got back into school at the end of the day, and I got caught up to where I was supposed to be, but I was a semester behind. And that's when I really started drinking hard alcohol, Jack Daniels. And
Mm-hmm.
from there on in, it was like, it was a love obsession for like 15 years.
Yeah. Did you ever get into harder drugs?
I did. So, as part of my downfall of drinking more and more, I knew I was an alcoholic, and I was starting to realize that I was drinking for a reason. And I'm like, you know what? I just can't do it anymore. So, but I didn't do anything about it. So I got on the program. That didn't help. And then, which it does help in the end of the day. But at that point, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Uh,
So when you say you got into the program, did you get into the program, or did you just show up to meetings?
No, I was buried in it. No, I was there. I was there for myself. I didn't have any court documents that I had to have someone sign for me to be there.
No. But I mean, when you got into the program, did you start working the steps? Did you get a sponsor? Did you do the suggestions, or did you just show up to meetings and listen and spout off hateful things like I did?
I listen a lot. I talk a lot. I read a lot, and it's been a little bit, but I don't, I read the promises. I say the Lord's Prayer every night. I believe in everything that AA is doing. I just haven't been to a meeting in a while. But real quick, to step back with the substance abuse, that started about 8 years ago when the stress of my life was just bearing down on me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I turned to the harder drugs, like your typical party drug, and alcohol, for a good 2 months at a disgusting rate. And finally, I just said, I can't do this anymore. So, and that's when I decided to get sober.
So what did you?
And I'm sorry, everybody, for being so bouncy. I'm bouncing around a lot, and I apologize.
It's fine. No, I think we're getting the message through today. So what did you do? Did you just start going to meetings? Did you go to detox and treatment? What did that look like for you?
So I decided at the nighttime, and I went to a friend's house. It was actually the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Surprise, surprise.
Mm.
And they, I decided that I was going to get sober, and I knew that as soon as I got sober, literally from that evening, that I wouldn't go get help or act upon the things that I've been saying I wanted to act upon. So I decided just to keep the party going until someone could roll me through the door. And, I have some amazing friends that helped me through that time, an amazing wife. But she didn't know I was going, and she didn't know I was going.
Who's she?
And I knew it was always a hope for her because she recognized it as an issue too.
Who are you talking about? Who's she?
My wife.
Oh, okay. The person that's calling you right now. It's your wife. She's like, you're doing it wrong.
No, it's a customer. It's even worse.
Oh no. So you were married at this point, at your darkest moment, when you went off the rails for 2 months there. Was there ever any coercion from family members, like from your wife, for example, to address your substance use problems?
A few years before, she had written me a letter. It was about 4 pages, and it's like, you're not only hurting me, but I'm hurting everybody else as well.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, it's an all-out shit show when I drink.
Yeah.
And I drink 5 days a week, 4 days a week. So I was a shit show for that long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she was a bit relieved when. So she wrote that letter and pushing me to quit drinking. And again, I wasn't ready, but she was right. And I was tired of that not my feeling, waking up every single day saying, "What did I say? What did I call that kid? Why do I have a black eye?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I said, at the end of the day, this is going to collapse, and everything is going to fall from under me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to get sober. With the help of my sister, I got into a program. My wife supported me. She was great. Everybody was great. I had a whole bunch of family members that got me there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And friends. They stayed in touch. They sent me cards. They kept me going. I made it through. For some reason, it was like 26 days. I don't know why, but we do 6 days of detox. And then I went into the men's, 28-day program, which I believe I successfully completed. But so upon completion of that, my wife and kids obviously hadn't seen me. They have seen me. They do visit me every week and all that good stuff. But not being around. At least she, planned like a big family dinner and all these nice things that we haven't done. And, and which is great. And I got home and I started unpacking my bags, and they obviously, added to my medication list. And then, as I'm going through these medications that I'm being sent home with, or that were locked up while I was there, one or the other, I noticed that there's a different name on the bottle of the patient. And that patient was in rehab with me. And you couldn't have any benzos on the floor, because obviously the point is trying to figure out how to live without using, any benzos or anything like that. I mean, obviously, I agree. There's a million exceptions for that, but it was a prescription, and it was Xanax, which I wasn't taking. And I know Xanax is something that a lot of people see.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't see the big. I don't get a feeling from it at all.
So what did you do with them? Did you take them?
Yeah, hell yeah, I took them. There was, I'm like,
I don't know why people take these things.
I mean, I was in 8 months. I mean, maybe 8 hours out of rehab.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, and then isn't your first 48 your most vulnerable?
Oh,
Uh,
I
that's
think,
what
I
I
think
heard.
the, yeah, well, I don't know if if you can really put a number on it, but, in any case, so you ate the bottle. Did you overdose? Like what happened?
So I ate the bottle, and then like I must have woken up at some point, and then ate more.
Holy shit. So were
Um,
you on a mission? Like, were you trying to die? Like, what were you doing? What was going through your head when you were doing
no, I
these?
just wanted to take a good solid nap, and I heard Xanax makes you sleepy.
Hmm.
So I was just taking them, and they were small, so I didn't think they were that much. I don't have an answer for you. I'm making shit up at this point. I,
Yeah.
I took them because I'm an addict. That's why I
Yeah,
took them, and
yeah.
I have a
There we go.
mental
Now we're getting
disability.
real. Now Hard
Yeah,
Knocks talks. There we go. Yeah.
yeah. I get
So
the disease of more.
yeah, that's true.
Uh,
That's true. I did lots
and
of drugs that I
so,
didn't like, especially scotch. My God. Who drinks scotch because it tastes good? Nobody.
I mean, now you're
So
talking my language. But
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
flashback.
Yeah.
Um,
So anyways,
what was I saying?
yeah, you took a bunch of pills. So
Okay,
now
so what happens is that night is I get out of bed and I fall down and I have gotten on the ground and I was trying to pull myself up with as clothes hang in a closet. I was kind of pulling from those those pieces of clothing and
yeah.
trying to get up and get out. And it scared the hell out of my wife, and I don't blame her. And it would be scary. It's I don't like to see that stuff today when I know what it is even.
Hmm.
Um, so I sympathize with her, and so she all she could do was her concern is the two boys, and she took them and she left because she didn't feel like it was a safe environment, not
Hmm.
because I was violent or anything like that, but I was just I couldn't even stand up. Uh,
Hmm.
it was awful. And then the police, she called for a welfare check, and the police came, and I actually saw the officer a day later or a little bit later, and he said that he was seconds from performing CPR on me. He
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
he was just waiting for the something, and
Hmm. So did you go back?
but
Like, did you go back using after that, or was it this just like a one-time thing?
no, that was a one time thing, but that turned
Probably.
my life upside down more than
Yeah.
anything.
That probably
Uh,
started a real shitstorm with the family, hey?
yes.
Speaking of which, were your
Uh,
kids angry with you? Like when you came out of rehab and you got home, like how were the kids? Did they receive you well, or were they like standoffish or mad or what?
my kids at the time were, you know, seven, I mean, they 3 or 4.
Hmm.
They're only 18 months apart, so they're like 5, somewhere around there. So they had no idea that they thought I was at a hotel, and because luckily I got into the center that sent me home with the prescription,
Hmm.
pretty close to my home.
Hmm.
Um, so, and also at the time, my wife thought that I had sought out these drugs, and
Yeah.
which wasn't the case, and she didn't know that. But I mean, and she had every right to assume everything in the world.
Yeah.
Um, so I think had she known that what really happened, yeah, she'd probably be still pissed, but I don't think to the degree of
Yeah.
ass kicking I got and ship shaping I got
Yeah.
out of it. So that was my rock bottom. So from there, it kind of went up for a little bit.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Was it?
Tell us about your first year in recovery. Like so you like let's paint a picture here. So you get home from rehab, you find the pills, you fall all over the place, wife leaves, you wake up the next day. Now what? Do you start going to meetings? Do you mope around? What?
No, I said to myself, I tried figuring out what I was going to do because
Yeah.
I couldn't, I wasn't allowed to go to the house at the time.
Oh, so
And
she went back to the home and you had to leave?
I was taken to the hospital in an
Oh,
ambulance
okay. Okay.
because I was unconscious.
Hmm.
Uh,
And then you weren't allowed to go
so
back home.
she 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 left before the ambulance came, and she called for help for me before she
Okay.
left. And then obviously she didn't want the kids to be around for all that, so she left and
Hmm.
did what she had to do to keep our family safe.
Of course. So, okay. So you're not allowed to go home. Tell us about how you stayed sober through that.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Did you
I
want to get drunk, or did the desire to use and drink it was just gone? Because for me, like, it got so bad that the desire to use and drink was gone. Was that like that for you?
no. It's not. I mean, there are a few things sometimes here and there I think about in my head briefly, but it's like, I'll look at Budweiser and I'll be like, okay, divorce, and then, maybe a different type of beverage and be like, okay, money
Oh,
for a lawyer.
yeah.
I mean, that's how I try to classify these things. That's the
How much
way
it's
I
gonna
gotta look
cost you
at
if you drink it?
it. Yeah, like my life, my
Yeah,
kids, my
yeah,
car, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so, um, as I learned some of my living changes, um, I moved into I didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
so I went back into detox.
Hmm.
When I left detox, my sister picked me up right in the morning, and I had to deal with something, and it ended up taking me all day, uh, 72 hours maybe. And I got out to get things done so I could get home and see my family. And unfortunately, I went in and I never came out. Um, but that was my fault.
What do you mean you went in
Uh,
and never came out? Went in where?
so I made a phone call. Uh, well, when I shouldn't have.
Okay.
And I was held accountable for that, which I should have been because I broke the rules.
Oh, okay.
Um, so to answer your question, so my kids were really young. Um,
Yeah.
I I I wasn't allowed to go to my sister's house, who lives close by.
Yeah.
I was so I would have had to go to like my parents back in my old house, like in my old room with like my Notre Dame thing
Hmm.
hanging from the wall. It's whatever. I So I decided to go to detox until I knew what to figure it out.
And they let you stay
So
there?
that's
They
what,
they had an open bed?
yeah, where I had been there before, and I
Yeah.
just got discharged, and I told them the reason why.
Hmm.
They were attentive to that, and
Yeah.
they got me right in that night.
Yeah.
I spent the day with my mother and brother, and my brother and I went out, and from there. Um, but once I was, we left the, you know, with the decisions being made for my new temporary location
Like housing
is
and
that
stuff.
correct would be I'd have to do I did 90 days in a sober house,
Yeah.
uh, and I buried myself. There's a place uh, around my area. It's called Hope for Recovery,
Okay.
and they were in a much smaller building. So I have a background in business and some experience in a lot of different other areas. So I tried to volunteer there a lot and try to help people write their resumes and
Hmm.
whatever I could do to give back. That's what all I was focused on. because I wanted my actions to show my worth, not what I say I will do.
Right.
And I think that's why this moment had to happen, because, I needed to be blocked off. I needed to focus on myself so I can
Yeah.
focus on everybody else.
Yeah. So how long did you do that for then?
So the sober house, I left after 90 days, and we had, and I came home after 90 days
To your
uh,
wife's house?
to my wife's house.
Right.
Yeah, and then at that point, I didn't want to say it, but at that point, I don't mean to laugh, but at that point, I was like, I was so used to living on my own and like my own terms, my own hours. I just couldn't drink or do
Mm-hmm.
drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came home, it was like, wow, yeah, okay, I see this. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And I just kept going to AA, and I didn't have to. I spent a lot of time at the Hope Center,
Yeah.
even when I lived in the sober house. But it was scary because the sober house had more drugs in it than I could find anywhere on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, my first night, they're like, "Hey, you have $10 and you want to come smoke some crack with us?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"I've never smoked crack, and I imagine it would probably make my fears, everything go away right now as much as I wanted to, but
Yeah. Yeah.
no."
I think I'll pass.
And that was,
Thanks. You come in. My
yeah,
life is on
yeah,
fire. I think I'll just
yeah.
pass. Yeah.
I literally got my ass kicked, basically,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, no. I said, go. I basically, I use fuck off. I said, go fuck you guys. I'm trying to get home. I'm not
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to live here for 8 years like you have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get the hell out of here because my floor's crooked, and every time I wake up in the morning, I'm up against the wall because I roll down the bed because it slopes so much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so it was amazing to me when I got into recovery how much drugs were out there
Yeah.
in the system itself.
Yeah.
It's rampant, and it's inside rehab centers. It's
Mm-hmm.
inside sober houses, and sober houses are just, in these areas are an investment purposes. And I feel like it's an investment on people's lives.
Yeah.
And there was a time, and I don't want to make a speculation because I don't have the data in front of me, but
Mhm.
I know because one of the gentlemen working for me actually died in that sober house. And that's where it was all coming from.
Yeah. So tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about what life has like now. I mean, you went through the sober living house. You're a program guy now, right? Like you go to meetings. Do you work steps? Do you have a sponsor?
I don't have a sponsor. I'm
Mhm.
still trying to figure out my recovery. When I first read the AA book, prior to me actually getting sober, because I try to go into a meeting, here and there once in a while, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, this whole book is about me. And, well, how do they know all this shit?
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I was all right.
Mm-hmm.
So I buried myself, in the foundations of it. I have this fear and I have an anxiety around like scheduling. Like I was so afraid of having to invest way too much time with a sponsor and check in and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't do it well with that. But 2 years ago, I left the program. I didn't leave the program. I just stopped attending meetings.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, the program does work.
Mm-hmm. So when you went into the program, what were some of the things that you found in there that were so helpful to you?
I mean, all of this that we talk about in any form of addiction or depression or whatever, it's because of some sort of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Can you repeat that question again, Daniel?
So when you went into the rooms, now you did mention literature, like the literature helps you a lot. You said the book was highly
Yeah.
relatable. So what else kept you going to meetings? Like what else brought value to your life from your experience there?
I left rehab with some good friends, and we were a group. And luckily, I was working in corporate America at the time, so I had long-term and short-term disability. So I was okay. You know what I mean? The family was okay
Mm-hmm.
because I had that, and I think had I not had that, things could have got really bad. And I know how fortunate I am to have that, but
Mm-hmm.
I did earn it too. Um, so I started getting back, and I started getting the program. I was doing about 10 meetings a week, and about 2 years ago, I've always had a back issue from like a car accident a long time ago, like 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of sciatica, and I was on like a low dose of muscle relaxers. And finally, after like 3 years, this was 2 years ago, I said to my doctor, I said, my back's still killing me. And my primary knows everything about my mental, and he supports me 100%. And I do keep them separate. Um, but he suggested that might have to go on something a little bit stronger because I've gotten used to the muscle relaxer. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, all right. So after that, I got to go on what, Percocet, and then what's after that, and then what's after that,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point I get to what, a $5 meth. I don't know how much meth is, but it's got to be cheap, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine.
Uh,
From what
I mean, it
I don't
depends how
know. I
much you
think,
buy.
yeah, or how much you value your life.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a heart disease, and so he suggested medical marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, it's great. And then I didn't really think about the program until like maybe a few hours later, because I had already felt some type of guilt because I was on, like, let's say my muscle relaxers for my back, or I've been on at least 30 to 40 different cocktails of medications in the last 5 years.
And you
Um,
were you were under the impression that you weren't welcome in the program if you were on these medications?
Correct. I didn't feel like anyone's welcome, and no one there. Maybe some of the old timers might, roll their eyes, but I don't think anyone would say anything. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was doing a disservice to them, though,
Yeah.
because eventually I did start taking the medical marijuana, and I'm like, it's a prescription. And you know what? He not only did he prescribe it for my back pain, but he also wrote on there for PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
which I wasn't aware of until this year. I actually saw it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps me with that, with some of the trauma I've been through,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps with my back. And so I feel like, we got people out there like yourself grinding every day and staying sober and not touching anything. And you commit your life to that. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I can't. I mean, I'm choosing to do what's best, plant-based for me rather than chemical-based for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's people that work way too much harder than I do or have to, because I do. I'm allowed to smoke, so I have an
Mm-hmm.
out. That's an
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be doing it? No, but it
I
helps
mean,
me.
who's to
And
say? Who's to, I don't know. I'd like to challenge that. Like when I first came into the room, I was like, if you're not completely abstinent from everything, then, you're going to die or whatever, you'll always end up back on the same stuff. But I've come to learn that there are a lot of productive people out there that are on, they're, on methadone maintenance, they're on Suboxone, they're on the marijuana maintenance like yourself, and they live happy, productive lives. So who are we to say that what you're doing is wrong or what someone else is doing is wrong? I think what's right is that we're put into a place where we can be happy and have a fulfilling life. and be
Right.
productive in society. So if you have those things, I would like to challenge you in thinking that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, who am I?
Hey, hey, you're my new doctor. Uh,
Hey, I hung my prescription
um,
pad up years ago.
yeah. Um, you said something great that I wanted to comment on, but it's like I also, which I don't think I told you this prior. I think another reason why I wasn't going to is because my when I got sober, I was literally in bed for 3 years, and
Hmm.
because of my anxiety, my depression, my PTSD, all those things. When I healed it and took the pain, the thing that was solving my issues away, I
That's
had
when the
nowhere to
problem
cope,
started.
and I was
Yeah.
crushed. And
Yeah.
that's what. And you look at these poor people, like in Boston, they call it. There's a methadone lab, and they call it methadone mile because for a mile it's just people all on meth. And people are like, well, look at those druggies. They deserve it, But that's not true. I mean, it's a result because at some point something happened to them, or
Yeah.
something is happening to them in their own brain that they don't even know about, or the doctors don't even know about, or
Hmm.
science doesn't even know about. And they're the only way they know how to cope with the pain that they're dealing with is having the ability to make that pain go away. And unless
Hmm.
you have money, you can't do that. So
Yeah.
drugs are the easiest and most obvious option. It's
I mean,
obvious.
everybody just wants to feel better at the end of the day, right? Like everybody just wants to feel okay, you
Right.
know? And
And it's not
I
fair.
mean,
The system sets us up all to fail.
it,
In
it,
the
it
United States, anyways.
yeah, it kind of seems that way everywhere, like in Canada here too, it seems like, it's almost as though you have to stop acting sick before you can get help with your sickness. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you got a broken leg. Okay, you run around that block 2 times and walk in the front door of the hospital, and then we'll put a cast on you. And they fucking pat themselves on the back like we're awesome.
Yeah, but that
We nailed that one.
yeah, but it took you 2 hours to go around the building too.
Yeah, yeah, and
Two
now your
years.
leg is now
2
the
years.
bone's sticking through your leg, and it's way worse than it
Yeah.
would have been. Like, and then
It's
then
like a
they blame you.
toothpick.
Then they blame you. Oh, you didn't want that cast bad enough. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I
Yeah, it's
hear
my
you,
fault
man. I hear you. So tell us about life
because
today. Tell us about life today. What's life like for you today? Are you back with the wife and the kids are in your life and stuff like that?
well, I received one of probably two of the most amazing gifts of sobriety that I think are, invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we worked on our marriage. We didn't, together, and it took a lot of time, and it still takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm still that person, and they're still trying to figure out with me what the hell to take or what the hell to put me on. And I'm like, why can't we just take it all out? But so I still, if you think that I'm on 13 medications, 14 medications, there's at least 10 side effects to each of those.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, my family does still suffer because when I'm like grumpy or just like kind of down in the dumps, so they're still affected, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like I'm raising my hand out there. Can somebody please just help me?
Yeah.
And so I started saying, you know what, if I'm going to get this done, I'm going to do it myself. So I looked into clinical trials and I found ketamine.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was in that for 2.5 years. And one of that basis at UMass Worcester, UMass Medical School in Worcester, they had a program. And because of that work, we now use it in a nasal format, which uh, in conjunction with the new antidepressant will work
Mm-hmm.
within 24 hours instead of the 2 weeks that you have to normally wait.
Hmm.
So it was a great program. But what am I doing now? I started a company, Cargill Home Solutions. Uh, I was still in bed. I was still going to therapy. I was still going to AA. I was still doing all those things because if I don't have any of that, I have nothing else.
Yeah.
And so I got my wife back, and she loved me and I got another kid.
Oh
So
my.
I got my third boy
Oh
out
my
of
goodness.
getting sober because it wasn't going in that direction. um,
Well, good thing you got sober.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, some days it's hard to think about everything that I went through, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it all had to happen. It all had to work out the way it did, and I struggle still a lot today. I'm still trying to find something out there like a magician or something that can help
Magic bullet.
unwind the head,
Mm-hmm.
but there's nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
with having my own company, I can be flexible, and that became to be. I ended up having too much work and too many employees, and I couldn't do it anymore. It
yeah,
was just too much
that's
stressful. But now I'm back at it a little bit, a
mhm.
couple days a week.
Yeah, well, we find our spot, right? We find our flow and what works and what doesn't. Like for me, for example, I'm going down to 2 shows a week instead of 3. So, like we
Yeah,
sometimes we find that limit and then we dial it back a little bit and, sounds like that's what you're doing.
right. And do you think that's something you would have been able to do before you got sober?
No, I would have ran myself into the goddamn ground. Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
yeah,
I wouldn't have stopped until, well, not unlike what I did do when I was back using. I didn't stop until my entire life was burned down. But now
right,
through working a program, and I'm sure you can relate, I've found a way to recognize like, okay, like this something needs to change, or I'm gonna lose all of the things that I have. So
right.
you just gain that insight after a while. If you work at it, if you do what you're doing, you go to meetings, you go to your specialists, you do your medication, whatever works for you, right? So I'm grateful to hear that you're finding your way and you're finding your limits and you're learning to play within them.
Yeah, and the only way to show that work is to, just get a signature in a date, at an A meeting. I was doing it for no, not for, I was doing it for myself, the
Mm-hmm.
signatures. And in the United States, some people go to drug court. They call, I'm
We've
sure
got that.
it's all the same.
Oh, we
Yeah,
got that
and
too.
so
Yeah.
and it's I don't know, but there's no help. You have to be suicidal to go anywhere,
Oh, and even
and
that's not enough sometimes.
that's not enough. And you
Yeah.
have to just to get into a place where you can sit back and be under like a therapist, like a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, uh, under observation, just to
Yeah.
and it's like a vacation in a way when you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
It's a vacation from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think we're coming to the end here. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience and some strength with us. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
No, yes. Again, this is my first time speaking publicly about my recovery. I do talk to individuals, but what I hope from this is just to get better at it. Obviously, I'm hopping around a lot, not finishing my stories fast, in the right manner. But
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to spread the word that of hope, love, that that it does get better. I got another human being out of working my ass off and putting others before myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want everyone to know that every day is a gift, and whether you have 2 days to survive, 48 hours, or 48 years, it's one day at a time.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I will let you go. And take care, my friend. See you again.
All right, Danny. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right, bye.
All right. We've got new music, and I'm still experimenting with it, so I hope you like it. We'll probably change it up. Donna hates it. She told me she hates it. So, but anyways, if you like what we're doing here, tell a friend to watch, or the sky will fall on their head. Okay? All right. Take care.